Today, Matt Walsh Show, we'll take a closer look at the story of the white woman who was set on fire while sitting on a train by a black man with 72 prior arrests. How and why was this man still walking the streets? Who's responsible? And what can we actually do to stop this madness? We'll discuss. Also, changes are coming to the SNAP program. Able-bodied adults with no kids will no longer be eligible, and they're not happy about it. Plus, a school board meeting opens with a Native American rain dance. It's as cringe as it sounds. We'll talk about all that and more today on The Matt Walsh Show. This is it, the biggest sale we do all year, guaranteed. Daily Wire Plus is half off for Black Friday. Get access to every show, movie, and the Pendragon Cycle, Rise of the Merlin. Already a member? Gift it and save. Go now to dailywire.com/subscribe. Launching your own business is pretty much on everybody's bucket list, but most people don't actually take the time to pursue it. Stop making excuses like, I don't have the skills or I can't do it alone. Take some action today and get started with Shopify. They've got the tools, you just need to take the chance. Shopify is the commerce platform used by millions of businesses around the world. We even use it for our own Daily Wire shop to make sure things are running smoothly and efficiently. It makes our lives easier and it keeps our customers happy as well. You might be thinking that you don't know how to design a website, or you might be worried about how people will learn about your brand, but that's not a problem. Shopify's got you covered from the start. They have beautiful, ready-to-go templates that match your brand style. They even will help you find your customers through easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. And if you need a hand with everyday tasks, their AI tools created specifically for commerce can help enhance product images, write descriptions, and more. Plus, their award-winning customer support is available 24/7 to share advice if you ever get stuck. Turn those dreams into and give yourself the best shot at success with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Walsh. Go to shopify.com/Walsh, shopify.com/Walsh. At 9:24 p.m. on November 17th, a 26-year-old white woman named Bethany McGee was sitting on a seat in the middle of a Chicago Transit Authority train car. She was looking through her phone, not paying much attention to her surroundings. At the same time, a 50-year-old black man named Lawrence Reed, who had 72 prior arrests and 15 prior convictions, including 9 felony convictions for crimes including arson, aggravated battery, drug trafficking, was seated at the far back of the CTA car. Now, to give you a sense of the distance between these two passengers on the train, in this image that you can see here, the woman is circled on the right and Reed is circled on the far left at the bottom of your screen. So they're not far away from one another. And in case it's not clear, the woman is seated with her back towards Reed. So she's completely defenseless. And before long, Reed stands up, walks towards the woman, and begins pouring gasoline all over her body. He had purchased the gasoline just 20 minutes earlier from a local Citgo station. Although the woman was able to briefly fight Reed off, he managed to ignite the bottle of gasoline in his hand using a lighter, run towards the woman, and set her on fire. He then watched from across the CTA car as her entire body was engulfed in flames. The woman attempted to roll around on the ground to extinguish the flames before exiting the car when it pulled to the station. She then collapsed on the platform, gravely injured, with burns to her face and her body. She ultimately went to the hospital in critical condition, where she's now expected to remain there in the hospital for several months. Lawrence Reed casually walked away, as if nothing at all had happened. When detectives arrested Reed the next morning, they read him his rights and began transporting him back to the station for questioning. While in transit, without any prompting from the officers, he celebrated what he had done and began taunting his victim. He yelled, "Burn and burn alive," to the police officers. So put another way, just 3 months after a young white woman named Irina Zarutska was murdered on public transit by a black man with more than a dozen prior arrests who attacked her from behind while she was using her phone, left her for dead, and taunted her after the fact, yet another young white woman has been violently assaulted on public transit by a black man with an even longer rap sheet, who also attacked her from behind while she was on her phone, and who also taunted her after the fact. This is a story of black on white violence that you've almost certainly heard by now. We briefly mentioned it last week. but it merits a much more in-depth discussion than it's received in the national media. Already, for the most part, mainstream outlets have moved on. Now we know that if a white man had violently attacked a black woman on the train for the second time in 3 months, of course, all of these outlets would be encouraging rioters to level the entire city of Chicago within 24 hours. Not that the encouragement would probably be necessary. But as it stands, you can go to CNN's website and search the name Bethany McGee, and you will not find a single result. To the extent that this case is receiving coverage at all, it's mostly from local news stations who are eager to inform us that Lawrence Reed is suffering from some kind of mental illness. So really, he's the victim here. Watch.
Judy, Lawrence Reed has at least 14 criminal cases in Cook County going back to 2017, 6 of which are battery charges. Records appear to indicate that he may be homeless and suffering from a mental illness of some sort, something that was clear to see for anyone inside yesterday's initial court hearing. The question we asked today is, what does this mean for his case going forward? Speaking after yesterday's court hearing, federal investigators were unequivocal when it came to their description of the man they say set a 26-year-old woman on fire on the CTA's Blue Line Monday night.
Lawrence Reed had no business being on the streets, given his violent criminal history and his pending criminal cases.
A record search of Reed led to this, a long list of mugshots associated to crimes ranging from driving on a suspended license to battery. In 2020, he was sentenced to a 24-month mental health probation after setting this fire outside the Thompson Center. And just a few months ago, in August, he was placed on electronic monitoring after he allegedly struck a social worker while being held in the McNeil Psychiatric Hospital in Berwyn. In court yesterday, Reed's erratic behavior included yelling several times, "I plead guilty," while also insisting he would represent himself, raising the question whether his competence could make it hard to secure a conviction.
I'm not aware of him ever being declared mentally incompetent in connection with any of the other extensive criminal history.
It's almost beyond parody. I mean, if the crime wasn't so horrific, you'd have to laugh at this. So the career felon lies in wait on a train car. He deliberately attacks the most vulnerable white woman he can find on the train, a woman who's completely defenseless and unaware, and then he runs away, demonstrating a clear awareness that he had just committed a crime. And then when he's caught, he mocks the victim. When he's brought before a judge, he admits that he's guilty, just like he was guilty of all those other offenses that he had committed, all the other times that he assaulted people and set things on fire. So he admits that he's guilty. And after all this, we're supposed to conclude that really he's just unwell. He's got some kind of horrible brain disease. In fact, the disease is so bad that we might not even be able to put him on trial. We might just have to sentence him to 6 months of therapy and cut him loose again. Wait for him to burn someone else alive. You know, who's to say? He can't possibly be evil. He can't possibly be just a horrible person. His guilty plea can't possibly be legitimate. He must be sick. No, that's got to be it. Now, it's worth pointing out that we used to have public hangings in this country within 24 hours of arrest. If you got caught for a serious crime, even for, in some cases, nonviolent offenses like spying, that's what would happen to you in the early days of this country. You'd be tried, convicted, executed. Within 24 hours, all this stuff would happen. Very prompt, very efficient. We used to be able to recognize evil people and evil behavior and punish it. But that's not what's happening anymore. And why is that? I mean, that's the question that really needs to be answered at this point. So let's try to answer it. We'll start by taking a look at the judge who just let Lawrence Reed out of prison back in August after he slapped a social worker so hard that he knocked her unconscious, cut the cornea of her eye, bruised her optic nerve, caused a concussion, and chipped her tooth. After that, he was let out of jail. And this is by was a judge by the name of Cook County Judge Teresa Molina Gonzalez. Okay, that's the person responsible. 3 months ago, following his assault, prosecutors requested that Molina Gonzalez keep Lawrence Reed in prison because by that point, he'd already racked up more than 70 arrests and 15 convictions, and he just violently, brutally assaulted someone. And clearly he was a danger to everybody around him. Prosecutors told the judge, quote, "The defendant poses a real and present threat to the safety of, especially this victim, whoever else was working in the hospital that day, and the community as a whole." Electronic monitoring, the prosecutor said, could not protect the victim or the community from other vicious, random, and spontaneous attacks. But the public defender's office disagreed. They told the judge, quote, "Mr. Reed needs services. He does not need to be incarcerated for being mentally ill and acting in accordance with his mental illness." Now, that's an argument that is worth repeating. He does not need to be incarcerated for being mentally ill and acting in accordance with his mental illness. In other words, no matter what horrible things Lawrence Reed does, he shouldn't be incarcerated as long as his behavior is consistent with some mental illness that he's acting in accordance with. According to the public defender's office, the safety of the public is irrelevant. That's really what they believe. The safety of innocent people, totally irrelevant. What matters in their view is whether a psychiatrist was willing to write you a get-out-of-jail-free card. That's all that matters. And this case is yet more evidence of what I've argued for a long time, namely that two of the greatest dangers to our country are, one, the psychiatry industry, and two, liberal female judges. And when these two monstrosities come together, as they did in this case, you end up with horrors beyond comprehension. Okay, like women burned alive on public transportation. That's what you end up with. Now, the judge, according to court transcripts, sided with the public defender. Judge Melina Gonzalez told prosecutors, quote, "I can't keep everybody in jail because the state's attorney want me to, but I understand and respect your position." She then told Lawrence Reed to stay away from the hospital where he had beaten the social worker unless he had a medical emergency. And then she told him that he'd need to wear an electronic monitoring device, quote, "because of your ridiculous criminal history and lengthy criminal history." Yes, in court, the judge described Lawrence Reed's criminal history accurately as ridiculous. And yet, despite that finding, she released him from jail because they can't keep everybody in jail. Oh, well, you can't keep everyone in jail. Well, can you keep someone who's been arrested 70 times? Can you keep them at least? So if you can't keep everyone in jail, that means that you can't keep a person who's been arrested 70 times. And no, we don't need you to keep everybody in jail. No, just the criminals. That's not everybody. How many criminals should you keep in jail? Well, however many there are. However many people are criminals, that's the number you should keep in jail. Oh, we don't have enough room in jail. Okay, well then build another one. Or put more of them in a cell together. That's uncomfortable for them. Who cares? Who cares? You know, how about that for an answer? Squeeze them all in there. I don't know. They're the ones who committed crimes. Now, of course, the so-called electronic monitoring was completely useless because she allowed him to leave his home for 40 hours each week, completely unsupervised. To be clear, this ruling would be totally indefensible if she had put him on indefinite house arrest and said he couldn't leave his home unless he needed to buy groceries or something. That would still endanger the public to an insane degree. But she didn't even do that. She imposed basically no restrictions at all. She told him that she could leave his house for 40 hours a week. So who is Judge Teresa Melina Gonzalez exactly? What is her judicial philosophy? How did she become a judge in the first place? Well, these are questions that no one seems interested in answering, but they're important to answer because judges like this are the root of the problem. Okay, they need to be exposed and removed from office. And in order to do that, we need to understand how she rose to power. How do these people end up in these positions to begin with? Now, in this case, you don't need to look far. The official website of the Illinois court system recently published an interview featuring Judge Melina Gonzalez. And during this interview, she was asked, when you reflect on your career, what accomplishment are you most proud of? Okay, that was the question. Now, if you're a judge and you hear that question, a good answer might be something like, well, I apply the law fairly, or I uphold the rule of law, or I've kept the public safe by sentencing violent offenders to prison instead of letting them loose immediately after they nearly kill a social worker, or something along those lines. I mean, after all, that's the reason we have judges, right? But Judge Melina Gonzalez did not respond that way. She didn't say anything about justice or safety for the public or anything like that. Instead, she said, and I quote, "The accomplishment that I am most proud of in my career is being the first Puerto Rican judge ever appointed and elected to a countywide judicial position in Cook County. As an attorney who is in court nearly every day of my career, I never once had the opportunity to step up before a Latina judge. Now I am proud to say that so many other Latinas are becoming judges, and I'm excited about a judiciary that actually represents all of the community." Now, to translate that, she's not proud of anything she's done in her career. She's not proud of any accomplishment. She hasn't accomplished anything. She's proud of being Latina and infiltrating the United States judiciary. That's it. On so many levels, it's hard to even comprehend the mindset of someone who would give an answer like this, because productive, useful people don't consider their ethnicity to be an accomplishment, like something that you achieved. The question was, what have you achieved? And the answer was, well, I'm Latina. Oh, you achieved that? That's a thing that you achieved. But for this judge, this is the only accomplishment that's worth mentioning, apparently, and it's not a great mystery how she became a judge either. In this interview, she credits another Hispanic woman with two last names, Mercedes Luque Rosales, with jump-starting her career in the Cook County State Attorney's Office. She made a connection with Mercedes and then, one way or another, managed to get hired at a time when 97% of applicants were rejected. Presumably, she was hired based on, merit and competence, and definitely not her ethnicity, which is the one thing she's proud of in life. Now, it's worth going into detail on this judge's background because at this point, these judges need to be removed from power one way or another. Impeachment doesn't seem to be viable since we've been calling for judges to be impeached for many months now and years, but it's not happening. There is, though, an alternative solution that could actually be productive. Okay, this is something that can be done, and that is to change sentencing law so that judges don't have any discretion in sentencing in these kinds of cases, or at a minimum, so they don't have discretion in sentencing repeat offenders anymore. Okay, a judge should not have the right or the power to take someone who's been arrested 70 times and put them back on the street. Okay, I don't care about any fancy robe you wear. Doesn't matter. You should not have that power. The judge should not be able to do that. Now, the catch is that not too long ago, we used to have laws like this. You probably remember them. They were called three strikes laws, and they used to be overwhelmingly popular, even in states like California. In fact, in the mid-90s, California passed the strictest three strikes law in the country. A third felony meant a mandatory term of life imprisonment. But almost immediately, the law was watered down, not by voters, but by judges. Within just a couple of years, the California Supreme Court invented the idea of a Romero motion, where defendants could petition the court to forgive a strike as long as forgiveness was in the interests of justice. So the voters made it very clear that they wanted a three-strike system, which by definition is not a four-strike system. The voters wanted to prevent judges from releasing habitual criminals. They wanted to prevent exactly this scenario. But the judges just came in and said, no, we're going to take that power back for ourselves. You guys voted on this, but yeah, you can't have that. Here's what we're going to do. Now, what happened in California is that a defendant named Jesus Romero was charged with possessing 0.13 grams of cocaine after having been convicted for residential burglary and attempted residential burglary. So prosecutors thought they had a slam dunk case on their hands. Okay, this is like what the three strikes law is for. This would be Romero's third strike, and he would go to prison for 25 to life automatically. But the judge thought, well, that would be an unjust outcome on the theory that it's wrong to give such a harsh sentence for narcotics possession. Poor guy. He only had a little bit of cocaine. He only committed attempted burglary 2 other times. Let's give him a 4th chance. So he told the defendant he could plead guilty in exchange for the judge dismissing one of his strikes. And somehow the California Supreme Court upheld this arrangement. Now, of course, the big problem with the logic here is that the defendant voluntarily possessed the narcotics after he had already committed 2 serious felonies and been convicted for them. So He already committed 2 crimes, either one of which by itself should have resulted in a sentence of 25 to life in a sane society. Okay, burglary should be a life sentence. You break into someone's home to steal from them, you should just go to prison forever, and that should be the end of it. But he did it twice. He robbed people in their homes. And then after those convictions, he was on notice that any additional felony would mean 25 to life sentence. He knew this. He knew the risk he was taking by committing another crime. Okay, he knew that by possessing that cocaine, he could go to jail forever, and he did it anyway. Somehow he still lacked the impulse control to refrain from breaking the law one more time. Most of us can go our entire lives and never commit any felonies. He couldn't limit himself to 2. And so this is not someone who you want to share a society with under any circumstance. He has failed a test that no worthwhile citizen would ever fail. And that's what these laws are about. It's pretty simple. If you cannot manage to refrain from committing crime after crime after crime, we're done with you. We don't need you in society. You had your chance, you had multiple chances, and now you're gone. And part of the reason for that law is that we recognize exactly what we're seeing in cases like what happened in Chicago. That these criminals, these habitual criminals, they keep committing crimes, The crimes tend to get worse over time. And so either you cut it off in the interests of justice and safety, or you just let them keep committing crimes until they do something so horrendous that you have no choice but to put them in jail forever. So California Supreme Court, they disagreed with the 3 strikes law. So almost immediately, the 3 strikes law was watered down. And then the propaganda began. Corporate media outlets complained about criminals who were supposedly being sentenced to life imprisonment for relatively minor offenses like stealing golf clubs. So California voters changed the law again, so that the 3rd strike has to be a violent felony. And then they changed the law once more to reclassify many felonies, including drug-related felonies, as misdemeanors, so they wouldn't count as strikes. And to this day, California's 3 strikes law is still being weakened by the courts. There was a ruling a few months ago by the California Supreme Court that prevents some gang-related crimes from counting as strikes. So it just continues. Now, in Illinois, where Bethany McGee was attacked on the train by a man with 72 arrests and 15 convictions, there was a similar trajectory for the state's equivalent of a 3 strikes law, which is supposed to punish so-called habitual offenders with increased sentences. Illinois has had a habitual offender law in the books for many decades now, since the 1970s. But obviously, habitual offenders aren't actually being punished with any meaningful sentence. I mean, if they can get convicted 15 times, knock somebody unconscious, and then get out of prison immediately, then this law is not working. So how did that happen? Well, as it turns out, 4 years ago, the so-called SAFE-T Act was signed into law by Illinois' rotund governor, J.B. Pritzker. This was a part of sweeping criminal justice reform, so-called, quote-unquote, as Democrats call them. One of the reforms was to abolish cash bail, which has led to 75% of defendants simply skipping their first court date, since there's no financial penalty for doing so. It turns out with a criminal, if you put them on the honor system, it's not going to work because they have no honor because they're criminals. Yes, because, an act that supposedly provides for public safety, 3 out of every 4 criminals in Illinois have simply stopped showing up to court. That's public safety. But in addition to that great innovation with the SAFE-T Act, Illinois lawmakers also modified how habitual offenders are treated. And one of the big changes is that defendants, regardless of how many crimes they've committed, are entitled to pretrial fairness, as the law puts it. And in practice, that means they're entitled to go free as long as they promise to wear an ankle monitor. The judge has total discretion to let any criminal, walk right out of the courthouse as long as he wears an electronic monitoring device. And that led to situations like this one from the summer, where a lunatic held up a federal courthouse for 9 hours only to be released immediately. Watch.
The man charged in a 9-hour-long standoff at the Dirksen Federal Courthouse has been granted his release from custody. Prosecutors say Mario Santoyo brought a knife into the building last month, prompting that standoff. Today in court, a judge ruling that Santoyo will be released to the custody of his sister with an ankle monitor. He is also being ordered to stay away from any federal buildings except for court appearances, and he will receive psychiatric assistance.
Now imagine being one of the SWAT guys on that call. You know, a federal courthouse downtown is being held hostage by a deranged criminal with a knife. You bring out the armored vehicle and shut down the entire block. They had to evacuate the entire 30-story building because of this. Operations of the courthouse are suspended. And after an entire day, around 8 p.m., you finally take him into custody. And then the judge lets him out a few hours later, as long as he wears a bracelet. It's okay, the judge says. Well, his sister is going to make sure he doesn't cause any more trouble. It's actually astonishing, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, this is the kind of punishment a child might receive in an elementary school after he cheated at hopscotch. And thanks to criminal justice reform, that's how Illinois treats literal terrorists. Now, one point that needs to be made here, now that I think of it, is that Lawrence Reed almost certainly had far more than 72 arrests and 15 convictions before he lit that woman on fire on the train. Those are just the arrests and convictions we know about. I mean, almost certainly he had many more arrests as a juvenile that have been expunged or sealed. We really have no idea. On top of that, how many times have police officers detained him without any charges being filed? Again, no one has any idea. But we can assume that it's happened quite a lot. I mean, that much we can assume. But as it stands, even the official numbers are staggering. The man who killed Irina Zarutska on the light rail had more than a dozen prior arrests. The man who killed Logan Frederico as she slept had 39 prior arrests. At what point do we do what Bukele did and say enough is enough? I mean, this is not actually a difficult problem to solve. We could turn Chicago into a utopia. I mean, in comparison to what it is now. We could do that in a year if we wanted to. All you have to do is take every violent criminal and put them in a cage forever or kill them lawfully. That's how you have a civilized, safe society. There is no other way. That is the only way to do it, period. In Chicago, somebody is shot every 4 hours and murdered every 19 hours. Already this month, there have been 24 homicides, 124 total shooting victims. By the end of the day, those numbers will almost certainly be higher. In response to these numbers and to the attack on the train last week, J.B. Pritzker has suggested that he's open to revisiting the Safety Act in some way, but revisions are not enough at this point. We need laws, ideally at the federal level, that strip judges of all discretion when it comes to repeat offenders. Okay, these judges cannot be trusted. A lot of them are, talk about mentally ill, a lot of them are psychotic. And we need a return to the three strikes laws of the 90s. You know, the laws that prevent judges from clawing back any of that power. But most of all, we need to see some kind of meaningful professional consequences for judges who let violent criminals go free. The alternative is judicial tyranny and the elimination of civil liberties for all Americans. This is a civil rights issue. Because after all, if we can't go out in public without a reasonable fear that a violent habitual felon is going to shank us or light us on fire, then we have no civil liberties. The first conservative lawmaker in Congress to propose some kind of solution to our rogue judiciary will also be the first conservative lawmaker in Congress this entire year to propose a genuine, meaningful improvement in the lives of Americans at all. Before any more young women are killed or maimed for the crime of going outside in a major American city, and before any more Republicans resign from Congress, it's time that we heard some of those proposals. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. The holidays will be here before you know it, and for many families, that means excitement and a little stress. Between gifts, travel, and higher prices, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, especially if you're already relying on credit cards to cover the basics. If you feel the debt is piling up, you're not alone, but here there is help with American Financing. If you're a homeowner, you might have considered reaching out to American Financing, but hesitated because you don't want to give up your low mortgage rate. That's why American Financing created the Smart Equity Loan, a simple and smart way to get your finances back on track without giving up your low mortgage rate. The Smart Equity Loan offers a fixed rate, so you'll have one predictable monthly payment. It lets you use your home's equity to pay off high-interest debt, free up your cash flow, and still keep your existing mortgage intact. There are no upfront fees. To find out if you qualify, so call American Financing today, 866-569-4711. That's 866-569-4711, or visit americanfinancing.net/Walsh. When you prioritize your health, you're investing in your ability to show up fully, think clearly, and stay resilient through whatever life throws your way. Take charge of your health with Armra Colostrum. Armra Colostrum taps into nature's original superfood, packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that strengthen your gut and boost your immune system from the inside out. Unlike probiotics that only address one piece of the puzzle, colostrum strengthens your entire gut wall system, easing bloating and supporting healthy digestion. The result is a stronger immune system, healthier metabolism, and noticeable improvements in your hair and skin. It's the secret that elite athletes have relied on for years to boost performance and speed up recovery. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armra.com/Walsh or enter Walsh to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's armra.com/Walsh. Well, we've discussed the SNAP program quite a bit on this show for good reason. Some changes are coming to the SNAP program, the EBT program, changes that have made some food stamp recipients or former recipients now very upset. Listen.
Government officials say if you are 18 to 65 years old, you don't have a disability, you don't live with kids under the age of 14, and you don't work at least 20 hours a week, you'll likely lose your SNAP benefits. Some people on SNAP tell me they don't know if they'll have enough money to afford groceries.
That's some bull.
Nelson Scott is on the verge of losing access to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. He is 38, not disabled, doesn't have any kids, doesn't go to school, and doesn't have a job. Those are just some of the reasons he is no longer eligible for SNAP benefits.
How much did SNAP help you?
It helped me a lot. I get $292 a month.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture crackdown is led by President Trump, who signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law in July. The government shutdown stalled the November 1st deadline for implementation. However, these changes are still coming up.
We help
Signe Anderson is a senior director of nutrition advocacy with the Tennessee Justice Center.
Because of rules like this, we can see individuals that are going to be forced to skip meals.
She points out senior citizens and children between the age of 15 and 18 will be most impacted. Rick Williams is a conservative political analyst.
A 15 or 16-year-old can take care of themselves at home while you go work. There's no reason you can't be working. There are plenty of jobs out there.
Scott tells me, as a convicted felon, getting a job isn't easy.
I will get one if y'all give me one. Y'all be felony friendly and hire us.
Okay, so you're having trouble getting a job because of your criminal record. Well, Nelson, that sounds like a you problem. That sounds like a problem that you're having. That sounds like a problem that is not our problem, but is your problem. Okay, maybe that's why you shouldn't commit crimes in the first place. Even though, like, actually there are plenty of jobs you can get, even as a felon. Not good jobs, but you can get the jobs. But think about this. So this guy, he went out, committed a crime or crimes, however many crimes he committed, I don't know. And now as a consequence, he expects that we will feed him for the rest of his life. So his reward for committing crimes is he expects free food forever. That's the deal that he demands, and it's the deal that he has enjoyed up until now. Now, the Trump administration is obviously totally right about all of this. I think there should be many more cuts to the SNAP program. I think that the whole program should be scrapped, really. But certainly this is a bare minimum reform that should be put in place, and I guess is being put in place. If you are an adult, able-bodied, not elderly, and you have no kids, then there is absolutely no reason why you should be getting any help from the taxpayers at all. There's no reason why you should be getting any handouts from the taxpayers at all, period. I mean, I would revoke all welfare, all handouts, all taxpayer, quote unquote assistance of all kinds from everybody who is an adult, able-bodied, and has no kids and is not elderly. Okay, so if those are the qualifiers. And if you're in that group, I don't see why you should be be on the dole at all in any form. Like, go get a job, any job. And don't tell me you can't find one. You can find one. Again, it's probably not going to be a good job. Might be a really bad job, but it's something. I mean, this guy, Nelson says, well, it's $300 a month he was getting in food stamps. This guy's 38 years old, has no physical disabilities, no other responsibilities in his life. He only has himself to look out for. You're telling me you can't get a job that will pay you at least $300 a month? Like, you could set up a lemonade stand and make that much. I mean, like anything. If you're willing to put in any effort at all, you'll make $300 a month. So this is someone who wants to put in no effort towards his own life at all. He wants to do nothing at all for himself and be provided for. And obviously, we should not be cooperating with that. Now, it's when you have kids, it's more complicated, right? Because when you have kids and like you fall on hard times, you can't just take any job. You have kids to feed, you have a mortgage, you have all kinds of other obligations probably that come with it, and you need to find a job that fits all those requirements. You also, if you're a functional adult, you have, and you're Nelson's age at 38, you should have a career that you've been pursuing. You want to stay in that industry. Getting up and moving is not so simple when you've got kids and so that's why I'm not in favor of removing all safety nets. I don't think we should do that. I think it's good to have something for people who fall in hard times and need some help getting back up, especially if we're talking about families in particular. If we're talking about families, people who are elderly, or people who are actually disabled. And of course, we know that the category of disabled has been expanded into meaninglessness at this point. So anyone can claim they have a disability, and a lot of people who claim they have disabilities really don't. But if they really do have a disability, then those are categories where I think most people, most Americans, most taxpayers would say, yeah, there should be something in place. Like, we should have something in place to help those people. But it should be relegated to that group specifically. And in most cases, the help should be temporary. This is not a lifestyle choice. This is not permanent. This is a temporary assistance. That's what it should be. But a 38-year-old man with no physical disabilities and no dependents, no financial responsibilities at all. No, I mean, you need to make your own net at that point. Like, this is just another example of suicidal empathy, that we've allowed this kind of thing to happen, that we've allowed this kind of person to exist, right? This kind of person should not exist. Not that he should be dead. I'm saying this is like a grown man, able-bodied, who just doesn't work, right? That is not that he's like temporarily unemployed. Again, that's people become unemployed, they lose their jobs. That's one thing. He just doesn't work. Like, that's just not part of his life. Working is not something that he does. It's not part of his life. It's a lifestyle choice to not work. And that should not exist in a functional society. That should not be an option. This is where 2 Thessalonians applies, right? If you won't work, you won't eat. This is where it applies for guys like Nelson. For when we were with you, we gave you this rule: the one who will not work will not eat. Paraphrasing 2 Thessalonians. And this is settle down and earn the food you eat, right? And this is what it applies to, cases like this. All right, let's take a look at a couple other things here. Okay, I'm going to read a caption from Instagram. This was posted on Instagram. The caption is, "The Garden Grove Unified School District opened its Board of Education meeting last night with a traditional Native American dance performed by Baak Garcia, a Bolsa Grand High School graduate. The presentation was held in recognition of Native American Heritage Month. District officials noted that the segment was included as part of ongoing efforts to acknowledge the history and cultural traditions of Native American communities. Okay, so this school district went beyond the kind of like standard cringe land acknowledgement, the cringe acknowledgement. As, we're going to acknowledge how cringe we are, which is basically what a land acknowledgement is. But they upped the ante, and they invited some alleged Native American dude to the meeting to have him perform his traditional dance. And here's what that looked like. Watch. Okay, first of all, that was not a traditional dance. Okay, that was not that I'm an expert in Native American dances. I don't claim to be. But that was very clearly a dude in a feather headdress doing the electric slide. Okay, that was, put him in a wrinkled suit and put him on a wedding dance floor, and he's indistinguishable from like your drunk uncle at the wedding. That was your uncle after he's had 6 Sierra Nevadas and the electric slide comes on. That's what that was. Either that or it was Elaine from Seinfeld. That was the Elaine dance from Seinfeld. And again, I'm no American history expert. I'm no dance history major. I didn't major in dance history. I'm no dance historian, but I think I clocked about 5 different modern dances in that traditional Native dance. I think, so the electric slide, the Running Man, a couple of Michael Jackson moves in there. The Crip Walk, he's doing a Crip Walk. And we're supposed to believe this is all traditional. We're supposed to believe that the Chumash tribe or whatever, some tribe in the Pacific Southwest in 1832 was out there before a battle doing the Cupid Shuffle. That's what we're supposed to believe. After they raided a neighboring tribe and killed and tortured all the men and kidnapped the women and children, they celebrated around the campfire by doing the Cupid Shuffle. That's what we're supposed to believe. Now, it's very obvious when you watch these kinds of things, like in particular, especially this one, this guy's just making it up as it goes along. I'm guessing, I don't know if he lied on his resume and he got into this Native American dance troupe and and it was time for the big dance, and maybe the guy, like maybe he's a backup dancer and someone called in sick and they had to just throw him in there. And he panicked. He was just making it up. Did the best he could. And when I constantly make fun of this kind of cringe nonsense, I think it should go without saying, it's not because I have anything against Native Americans, so-called Native Americans. Now, as you know, as I have stipulated, I think it's important to stipulate, the actual Native Americans were not these people. The actual Native Americans are white Europeans. They are the ones who are native to the country of America, to the United States of America. But, just using the common term for the sake of discussion, so Native Americans, I have nothing against them. Someone today posted something, I posted this on X, and somebody responded and said, why does he hate Native Americans so much? It's so weird. Why does he have this grudge against Native Americans? I don't. At all. Actually, I'm legitimately fascinated by Native American culture. That's the irony here. As I know I'm a little hard on them sometimes, but I'm fascinated by the culture. I really am. I can't tell you how many Native American museums and festivals and historic sites we've been to with our kids because they also love that stuff. You go into my house right now, to my living room, and there's 10 books on the subject and on our bookshelf. I'm genuinely interested in it. How could you not be? I mean, it is fascinating. The fact that there was this whole world, right? This whole other world, this alien world, this primitive civilization, separated from the rest of the world, isolated in this hemisphere for tens of thousands of years, and kind of developing on its own. And then the modern world at the time, in the 1500s, late 1400s, early 1500s, this advanced civilization stumbles on to this world that's living 5,000 years in the past, and there's this clash of civilizations that lasted for hundreds of years. I mean, that's an incredible story. It really is. And I mean, here you still had hunter-gatherer societies, the most advanced societies in this part of the world, you know, back in the Mesoamerican tribes, the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Incas. They were as advanced as ancient Egyptians rather. So by the time that Europeans showed up here, the most advanced Native Americans had gotten to where the ancient Egyptians were like 3,000 years before that. And which is interesting. Like, it's very interesting. And it's like, it was like going in a time machine. It's one of the only, the only kind of real life example of someone using a time machine. It's when the European explorers got onto ships and came here in the 1500s. It's the closest thing to a time machine that we've ever seen. And these were warrior cultures, which I respect. You know, the people that lived here for the most part were, you know, these were strong, brave cultures. I mean, this is not, you know, the noble savage myth takes it way too far. But it is also true that these were warrior cultures, and there was a huge emphasis on being strong and brave and manly. So there's no contempt for me towards Native Americans. I'll tell you what I have contempt for. I have contempt. I have a lot of contempt. I have like deep contempt for the relentless campaign to make Americans feel guilty for the fact that we conquered this land fair and square and built the greatest country on earth on it. I have contempt for that. I have contempt for all these endless rituals meant to show regret and remorse and deference to the side that lost the war. Again, lost it fair and square. Because these were warrior cultures. And this is the law that they also lived by. If you can have it, if you can take it. Like, that's, if you want land, you got to take it. And if you can take it, you can take it, and it's yours. And if you can defend it, it will stay yours. And if you can't defend it, it's not yours anymore. That's the way the world worked. That's the way it worked here. So Europeans came here, played the game by those exact same rules, and they won. And that's it. And you know, the other thing is that these rituals, they are so insulting to both sides, by the way. That's what makes the video I just played so kind of illustrative, is that it's meant to be this expression of white guilt, which it is, but it's also deeply insulting to the natives who have been reduced to the kind of the status of court jesters, right? Flailing around in their feather suits, performing for the polite, patronizing amusement of white liberals. It's insulting all the way around. It's just awful. And it's even more insulting, really, to Native American culture to have some random weirdo dancing around like MC Hammer in a rainbow feather costume. Like, if you have actual Native American ancestry, you should be more offended by that than I am. But my main concern as an American is that the whole routine is meant to send a message. Right? This is not about respecting Native American history or being interested in it or anything like that. This is about sending a message. And it is a detestable message and it's a false message. It's a lie. And the message is that America has no right to exist. That's what all this stuff is about. Land acknowledgements, you know, these Native American rituals, the constant, like, that's what it's about. It's about saying that my country, your country, our country has no right to exist. And that's what I hate. That's the thing that I have absolute contempt for. You guys have heard me talk about the bearskin hoodie. Well, the smart people are locking in their winter gear now because this is hands down the best time to prep for the coming winter. Don't wait any longer than you already have. Bearskin is running a 6% off deal right now, but only if you get your hoodie early. This hoodie, which I am wearing right now, in fact, is built like a tank. Micro fleece, 10 pockets with a clean, rugged fit that looks awesome. I think it looks great, and which is hard to do. It's hard to make something look good on me, but somehow they pull it off. And also, it's very comfortable, and it's got utility. I mean, it's practical as well. So it combines all the things you want: style, practicality, and comfort. Plus, it zips right into the heavy storm rain jacket to become 100% waterproof when you need it. Now, as you can see, I'm, as I said, wearing my bearskin hoodie right now. And if you want to get your own bearskin hoodie, I mean, if you're inspired by how dashingly handsome I look in this, then do yourself a favor. Text the word Matt to 36912 to lock in your 60% off. Again, text Matt to 36912. You get a link sent straight to your phone so you can check it out later if you're busy right now, but you want to get on this right away. You get free U.S. shipping, fast delivery, and you've locked in your winter gear already. And that is a win-win. So don't wait till you're freezing to realize that your hoodie sucks. You need to get a new one. Get a bearskin right now while it's 60% off. Text Matt to 36912. Do it now. Our Black Friday sale is happening right now, and if you've been here before, you already know that this is our best deal of the year. Daily Wire Plus annual memberships are 50% off. With your annual membership, you'll be one of the first to see the long-awaited 7-part epic series, The Pendragon Cycle: Rise of the Merlin, premiering January 22nd. All Access members get it early with episodes 1 and 2 streaming Christmas Day. You also get every Daily Wire show ad-free, uncensored, and an hour before anybody else, along with live chats during the show, plus exclusive investigative journalism, breaking news, and unlimited access to our entire library of premium entertainment. Daily Wire Plus annual memberships are 50% off during our Black Friday sale. Pay half the price and get everything for an entire year. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe right now. Here's a story from a few days ago that I haven't mentioned, but I feel like I need to. I mean, there's not much to say about it, but I feel as though I must make mention of it. Really, in fairness, I should, because we talk about hate crime hoaxes a lot on the show. Well, New York Post has this. If you haven't heard about it, a former New Jersey GOP aide allegedly paid a fetish artist to carve dozens of cuts into her skin and had someone scrawl "Trump whore" on her stomach in order to claim that she was the victim of a politically motivated violent attack. According to shocking new court documents, Natalie Green, 26, was arrested Wednesday, charged with concocting the violent, bogus ambush at Egg Harbor Township Nature Reserve on July 23rd. Prosecutors said the accused fraudster claimed 3 gun-wielding men approached her and a friend on the trail around 10:30 p.m. before threatening to shoot her and hitting her in the head. The suspect said the fictitious attacker then hog-tied her and then cut her and slashed her because they don't like Trump. So we finally have our very own Jussie Smollett, apparently. There are pictures of what this woman did to herself or had done to her that are quite grisly, and I don't even think we can put them on the screen because they're very grotesque, pretty ghastly stuff. But, turns out it was all a hoax. I will say 2 things. Number one is the first right-wing hate crime hoax that I can think of. You notice how no conservative ever took this seriously? Or it was not, I guess it happened in July and no one even heard. If anyone heard about it in July, it's like any conservative heard about it would have said, well, that's clearly fake. That didn't happen. So that's one of the differences. On the right, when it comes to hate crime hoaxes, is number one, they almost never happen on the right. This is the first one. And we don't take them seriously. This is not, it's the difference between that and something like Jussie Smollett. And I will also say, I think it should be said, this woman, she put some effort into it. Okay. I'm not endorsing it. It's not good. She's obviously insane. I mean, this is an insane person. She actually does need psychological help, and she should go to jail for this. But also this woman needs some psychological help. Faking a hate crime is evil, so she's evil and insane. Allegedly, that's what she's been charged with. Seems to be the case. But I also can't help but notice that, the right finally gets its first hate crime hoaxer, and it's someone who puts some real effort and time into it, which goes to show we value effort and hard work. As conservatives, whatever you do, give it your all. Give it 100%. As we always say, And she applied that principle here. I mean, you got to admit. Because these left-wing hoaxers, the thing about it's like they not only are they dishonest, obviously, but they don't put any effort into it. There's no effort. They don't have half the ingenuity of our hoaxers, okay? They don't have the go get 'em attitude. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go out there and put your all into that hoax, which is what she did. And there's a lot of commitment. I mean, she committed to the bit because she's going to have these scars forever. She's mutilated forever. So, you know, think about Jussie Smollett. Like Jussie Smollett, yeah, I mean, he did put a little bit of effort into it, but even for him, it was like, okay, well, you want these guys to beat you up. They didn't really beat him up. Okay, this woman, she went out and said, okay, like mutilate me. Okay, I'm gonna disfigure me is what happened with her. Jussie Smollett, he had like maybe a small bruise on his cheek, maybe if that. Okay, he didn't have the commitment to it. If you're gonna do it, do it. So there's a lesson in there for all of us, I think. Yeah, we talked about this Afton Bain character yesterday who's running in the special election in Tennessee, and she became a public figure like 10 minutes ago, and it's been a rough 10 minutes for her because everything that's come out about her has been humiliating. So here's the latest. This is Afton Bain talking about a recurring dream that she has. Now, normally I hate listening to people talk about their dreams. There's nothing more tedious than a dream story. There's nothing less interesting than a dream story. You should know that if you're one of these people who goes around and say, oh, guess what? Can I tell you about this dream I had? There's nothing I dread more than a conversation that opens with that line. Hey, I had a dream. I had a crazy dream last night. And of course, when someone opens that, like, if you open that way with me, I had a crazy dream last night. In fact, I was talking to someone the other day recently, and they said that I had a crazy dream last night. And I'm supposed to say, oh, you did? Tell me all about it. But I'm not going to play that game. So I say, oh, really? Okay. Nice story. Anyway, because I don't want to hear it. The dream stories are meandering, long, like they don't go anywhere, plotless. 98 minutes later, they're still telling you about their dream. So all that to say, I'm usually not big into the dream stories, but here is one that is actually pretty revealing that this Afton Bain decided to tell someone about, and we have the audio of it. Here's what it is. Listen.
My therapist always asks me to transcribe my dreams when they happen, and the recurring dream I've had is standing up in a cafeteria full of women. I don't know why I was there or whatever, and saying, I don't want children, I want power, and just screaming it at the top of my lungs. And for someone who grew up with my mother telling me never have kids because you'll have to give up a lot. You'll have to sacrifice professionally, which is what she was saying. And where I am now with seeing the consequences and the ramifications of women having kids and being in the political field and what they're able to achieve, because we don't offer, it's like the political field hasn't met the challenge of working moms. They really haven't. But also the deeply patriarchal structures that these women are involved with because they've chosen marriage and they've chosen to raise children. And I think in the South, it's incredibly difficult to shake those, especially if you've grown up here and that's all you've been told is the definition of success. The metric of success is how many kids you have, the bigger the square footage of your house, and where your kids go to school.
I don't want children, I want power, she says. And that about sums it up. All right, that tells you the whole story. And before we get to that, I think the first lesson here is, once again, that therapy is totally worthless. Therapy usually does more harm than good. Because why is your therapist telling you to transcribe your dreams? Okay, your dreams don't mean anything. I got news for you. If you're sitting around, you have a dream, you're like, what did that mean? What is it? What does that mean? What is the dream? It doesn't mean anything. Okay, it's just random synapses in your brain firing. It doesn't mean anything. It does not mean anything. You're wasting your time sitting around looking for no, there's nothing prophetic. Okay, nothing. It doesn't mean anything. That's what your dreams mean. Nothing. So it's a waste of time, but that's all that therapy really is a waste of time. Narcissistic, self-involved people like Afton Bain go to therapy so that they have an excuse to talk about themselves incessantly, which is also all they talk about when they're not in therapy. But they spend the whole time like diving into their own egos, their own psyche, trying to find the depths and nuances, right? Plunge the depths of their inner life. And it turns out that there's no depth at all. There's nothing going on there. These are shallow, ridiculous people. And it's really not any more complicated than that. That is the problem. For most people who go to therapy, their problem is that they are shallow and ridiculous. And if their therapist was being honest with them, they would say that. They would listen to them tell their whole story, and at the end they would say, okay, well, I think I've identified your problem. You are a shallow, ridiculous person. You are a boring, shallow person. Your life is not interesting. Your problems are not interesting. And that's it. And I can't help you. And this is just who you are. And so the best thing I could say is like, stop talking so much. Don't inflict yourself on other people. That's what the therapist should say, but they won't. But as to the issue at hand here, yes, this is feminism in a nutshell. You know, women giving up family life, rejecting motherhood because they're selfish. They lust for power and material gain, and they, give up the love and fulfillment of family life in order to obtain it. But then they inevitably discover that they will never actually have all the power and wealth that they want, or anything close to it. And even if they do achieve it, they still aren't happy. And they can't be, because all this stuff is meaningless and empty if you're just doing it for yourself. Amassing power and wealth just for yourself will never make you happy. That's kind of the caveat to the, money doesn't buy happiness idea. It's that money for its own sake, power for its own sake, that will not make you happy. Now, money can help you be happy. It can help to lead to a happier life if you're not obtaining it for its own sake. And so, like, if you have a family, and so then you make money, well, now you can provide for your family. You can give things to your family, and that can help to make you happy. That's a very satisfying feeling, is being able to provide for other people. And so in that sense, money can buy happiness in that sense. But if it's just for you, then at a certain point, very quickly, you're going to kind of look around and go, well, what's the point? And after all that, you're still left with yourself. And for someone like Afton Bain, her problem is that she is, again, a ridiculous, miserable person. And it doesn't matter how much power you have or how much money you have, that's still going to be the case. But there's another point here that I want to make about this, because a lot of people have pointed out the obvious about it. I haven't seen anyone make this point, which is this, that, giving up motherhood for the sake of power isn't just selfish and shallow and morally repulsive. It's also counterproductive. It's like saying that, it's like if a person said that they care so much about being physically attractive, the only thing they care about in the world is being physically attractive, and so they're giving up exercise. Well, it's a problem that being physically attractive is the only thing that matters to you in life, but also, if you want to be attractive, you just gave up the main thing that will make you attractive. So it doesn't make any sense. And it's like that here. If you want power, if you want influence, well, there's almost certainly nothing you'll ever do in your life, no position you'll ever hold, that will make you more powerful or give you more influence than you would have as a mother or a father, as a parent. Now, that's not a good reason to have kids. Okay, don't get me wrong. You should not have kids because you want power and influence. That would be a very weird reason to go have kids. But it is simply true that having kids gives you power and influence over the future of this country in a way that almost no other job or position ever could. As a mother, you are shaping their lives, the souls, the minds of your children. And nobody will ever have more influence or power over your children than you do. And then your children will go out and have their own lives. And their own children. And no one, I mean, you and the father, like between the parents, no one will have more influence or power over your children than you. And then your children will go out, and again, they have their own lives, and then they have their own children. And the things that you do, the decisions that you make, will reverberate for generations. I mean, if you're a bad mother, your children's 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 children will still be paying the price 150 years from now. And in some way, in ways that they won't realize, they won't know where that traces back to. But there's a good chance if you're a bad mother, that sends your children off on a course that will have reverberate for decades and decades and even centuries. If you're a good mother, they'll be reaping the benefits for generations. So this is generational influence. It's immeasurable. Now, on the other hand, if you go off and become some corporate middle manager somewhere, do you understand how little power and influence you actually have? That's what's so absurd about these women who say, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to have power. I want to have influence. And so I'm not going to become a mother. I'm going to go get a job at some corporation, where I have where I get to sit in a 10 by 10 office, on the third floor. And what, that's supposed to be the power and influence? No, you are totally replaceable in your job. And that's true for almost everyone in almost every job. There are exceptions, but almost everyone in almost every job, you are totally replaceable. You don't actually matter that much. Because you could quit tomorrow and it would make no difference. You could quit tomorrow and they'll find someone else to do whatever it is you do, and it won't matter that much. And nobody will even remember a week from now that you ever even worked there. And then if you go off and become, a congresswoman? Who cares? I mean, do you understand how little power and influence people in Congress actually have? Most people in Congress, they'll be in Congress for years or decades, and it will be like they were never even there. They'll never do anything that matters. You could swap them out and put in a wax figure in their place, and it wouldn't make a difference. You could get rid of Congress and replace them all with scarecrows, and it would be the same. And now Congress, in theory, is supposed to pass laws, and that makes a difference. But for the most part, you're just voting along party line, and anyone can do that. It doesn't need to be you casting that vote. It could be just anyone. So, this woman, Afton Bain, she doesn't want to be a mother. She wants to be in Congress. Well, wow, good for you. So impressive. There have been like 4 members of Congress in the past 30 years who have made a difference at all, and Afton Bain is not going to be the 5th. And I think that we know that. So you give up all that. You give up actual fulfillment, actual happiness, actual influence, actual power, right? And in its place, you work at some, job in an office building somewhere, and you work there for a number of years, and then you leave. And someone else comes in and takes your job, and it just doesn't matter. It's not like that as a mother. That's the other thing. Like when you're in your job as a manager somewhere, you leave and it doesn't matter at all. Like no one's going to be mourning that you left. Probably there'll be more people who are happy that you left than there are sad about it. Even the ones who are sad, like by Monday, it's like doesn't matter. Now as a mother, if you refuse to do your job, if you quit your job as a mother, refuse to take care of your kids, then that is devastating. You have devastated the lives of these children. If you die, if you can't do your job as a mother anymore because you've died, total devastation, which again could last for generations in some form. But this is what feminism encourages women to do, is to give that up for, to become Afton Bain. I cannot imagine a fate worse or more pathetic than that. All right, we'll wrap it there for today. Won't be any daily cancellation for today. That will do it for the show today. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Hey there, I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley.
And I'm Georgia Howe, and we're the hosts of Morning Wire.
We bring you all the news you need to know in 15 minutes or less.
Watch and listen to Morning Wire 7 days a week, everywhere you get your podcasts.